All right, we're going to do this. We're going to talk about it. Avoidance. Are you ready to work through it? Ready to have a little bit of thinking about how avoidance impacts your life? It's something we do a lot, isn't it? And it's even a word that we use. I'm putting this off. I'm avoiding this. It's something that I'm shying away from, or something that I'm uncomfortable with. Or maybe it's something that creates a lot of fear and a lot of distress. And the more you avoid, the more it's taking over. For many people, avoidance has become a deeply ingrained pattern. It's impacting your mental health, your emotions, and how you navigate relationships. It's holding you back from some great victories. It's actually creating a wall between you and the freedom that you long for. I've had my own journey of recognizing avoidance that I've had to work through. And so today I want to walk with you on a journey where we can begin to acknowledge and recognize and get to the heart of avoidance, why we do it, some patterns we fall into, and how to begin to untangle ourselves from its grip and actually experience some great victories. So I'm excited to do this. Welcome to the Healing and Freedom Journey. Mark DeJesus here. I am your brother from another mother, bringing you insights along the way. I'm all about mental, emotional, and relationship health. And if you are too, you have arrived at a great place. If you've continued letting this video play, I want to let you know that I'm proud of you, because it's saying that you want to learn and you want to work on some things, because just the title of today's video alone could cause many people to just go, I'll watch the next one. But let's talk about it. You all right with that? My goal today here is to help you to see your avoidance patterns, but I want to walk with you as a brother and recognize and help you recognize you're not alone in this. You're not alone. I see this everywhere. In my work with people, I would say avoidance is one of the biggest problems. Avoiding situations, avoidance in our thoughts, avoiding even getting help, avoiding even talking about things, avoiding taking certain steps, avoidance coming out of phobias, OCD, out of fear, avoidance out of trauma. And these patterns need to be understood, because in the long term, they can actually hold us back from what we really want and what we desire. And I found that over the decades, when I look at what I've had to work with and help people and in their journey, is avoidance has had a big, big role. So you're going to need to understand what it is and take this journey with me. It's going to be a valuable resource. I believe it's valuable for you as an individual. I think it's valuable for families. I think it's valuable for churches, because we can fall into a lot of patterns, and sometimes we super spiritualize it, but we're not really seeing or being honest with, or maybe we just don't realize that we're falling into avoidance patterns. So let's get right into this. What is avoidance? Like, what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about a coping mechanism here that kicks in, where a person tries to evade or escape from thoughts, from feelings, from people, from situations, anything that they find to be distressing, frightening, anxiety-provoking, has a lot to do with discomfort. It is often practiced consciously or unconsciously, meaning we do a lot of avoidance without even realizing it. And there's some that we know we're doing it. It's a means of self-protection, and it can feel like there's a sense of self-preservation. Like we're trying to preserve our safety or preserve something. And avoidance starts as a natural human experience, a natural human response to danger. It's understandable, but it becomes problematic when it reinforces anxiety and it prevents healing and growth. Now, I always like to do this because I like to help bring clarity. I like to talk about what things are not. So whenever I talk about a topic, I like to say what it's not. And there's three things I want to say up front of what avoidance is not. Number one, it's not setting healthy relationship boundaries. Setting boundaries is good. That's not avoidance. And we need to learn to do that. And many of us don't set boundaries because we're actually avoiding conflict, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation, avoiding having to express a boundary, actually hold the boundary, right? So out of avoidance, we don't even bother. So understand that having boundaries doesn't mean you're avoiding something. Healthy boundaries. Two, stepping away from a very toxic relationship. A person who's very, very unsafe, very unhealthy, And there's a lot of different words we could use to maybe describe different types of toxic relationships. So stepping away from that doesn't mean you're avoiding. Okay, so that's important. And number 3, this is important for those of you that struggle with intrusive thoughts and OCD. You will often hear that it's important to starve your compulsive behavior. You feel the fear, but you don't feed whatever compulsive thing you do. Well, many who struggle with OCD, when you starve your compulsivity, for example, you may have a compulsion of looking up your symptoms online. And you go, you know what, I'm going to starve that. I'm going to work through the fear and the uncertainty without that compulsion. And the thought kicks back. You're avoiding something that you're probably needing to research or know. So that is something to be aware of too. Many of you, you may feel like you have to, in your scrupulosity, you go research and research and research and research. And when you come to a place where you realize, I've got OCD and scrupulosity, and I've got to take steps forward in my journey. And I can't keep tending to this. It'll say, you're avoiding something. You're avoiding something. So I want you to understand, when I'm talking about avoidance, I'm not talking about these 3 areas that are areas that we need to recognize and understand, okay? Avoidance it's a big part of coming out of trauma. In the short term, avoidance can be helpful to a traumatic experience. I got to get out of here. I'm not safe here. I got to go. This is understandable. The problem is that this can keep happening and become chronic way after the trauma is over. Avoidance becomes problematic when it now gets into the way of our peace and forward movement in life. Now, those with PTSD often develop a variety of avoidance patterns, and it's a common symptom of it. And we have to keep in mind that avoidance for PTSD is not treatment. It's a symptom of it, but it's not treatment. Eventually, we're going to have to learn how to gently, lovingly, gradually face that which we're afraid of in new experiences. Now, I've been in a whole series on trauma. This is a part of it, but this avoidance thing spreads out into a bunch of different areas. But anyways, trauma is a big part of it, because it hits us, even spiritual abuse and being a part of a toxic church experience. And now it creates an avoidance of being around church people or being in a church building or being in a congregation or a gathering at all. It can spike all this stuff. So that's understandable. But at some point, we have to recognize when it's getting in the way of our forward progress. Now, avoidance in OCD is a big one because it really surrounds a lot of the compulsive behavior. You can do avoidance in your thoughts. You can do it in action. The fear of discomfort drives this. It's the belief that any trigger will lead to unmanageable distress and a loss of control. I see on a daily basis OCD and scrupulosity strugglers with avoidance. And they become, the more you fall into the avoidance pattern, the more that your obsession becomes catastrophized, the more whatever you're fearing grows. And so we have to recognize what we're looking at here is avoidance wants us to just get away from being uncomfortable. And when I made the decision that I need to learn how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, it helped me to learn how to walk through the storms of life in a different way and to see them from a new lens, because I would just move into avoidance all the time. It's very, very common that compulsive avoidance creates rules that got to be applied. Now you surround yourself with a whole machinery of things that must go into place. And it creates a relational rigidity. I put this on the slide here. It drives a rigid pattern of thinking, behaving, and relating. And I notice this a lot with compulsives and what we would call control freaks or perfectionists or those who are highly anxious, is they can develop intense avoidance of anything happening or them being near something. So their control factor really increases and there's a strong, strong rigidity. When we talk about avoidance, we're talking about our response towards triggers. This is a common word. It's in our social vernacular and how we interact. But I want to take a moment to just explain, what are we talking about when we talk about a trigger? And what we're talking about is a stimuli. It's kind of a technical term, right? It's something you come into contact with or something that arises even in your thinking. So it can be internal or external. And it evokes a strong, usually uncomfortable emotion or physiological response of anxiety, dread, guilt, shame, or confusion. And the thing is that when you're uncomfortable in this, you want to go to something quick to alleviate. And avoidance often becomes a very quick programmed behavior. So anything can trigger this kind of response. Specific words, a sound, a smell, a situation, a setting, a phrase that is said, a TV show, a scripture that is brought up, a scene, something we drive by, something we walk into, a person we bump into, a memory that comes up. For trauma, it can be something that resembles a past experience that was very painful. For OCD, it's that feared subject, anything that is close to that feared subject, their obsessive theme being mentioned or brought up or experienced. Now, let me say this, just because someone is triggered does not mean that the setting is dangerous. Now, this is what your fight or flight system does, is it tells you danger, 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 but it can get easily hijacked and distorted. So because we're triggered doesn't mean, in fact, what is creating the trigger in our minds is actually dangerous. In fact, many times in our journey, we can experience a sense of triggering, and people around us don't even know, or they don't even mean to, and they're not doing anything malicious. But there's just something in how a reference was kicked up. It's a lot about references that happen here. Now, even my videos, people write to me, I got triggered, their comment, this triggered me. You talked about this subject in the Bible, and it triggered me. And at first I did my best to create a compassionate environment. And then I realized just by talking, I've run into an endless list of subjects, areas, and things. To this day, there's just more and more and more of them, of things that trigger people. In fact, there are many that will avoid this video altogether and the audio and all that too, because it's just, I don't want to deal with that, right? Meanwhile, what we have to understand is that in our healing journey, we're going to need to learn a new response to our avoidance patterns. Otherwise, we're going to be held captive by them. So a common response that we have to triggers is avoidance. That's why I wanted to explain avoidance, explain triggers. Now, I want to talk about some common ways that we feed avoidance, but I did a video on this, and I'll let this show full screen. There we go. I did a video on this. Are you living in avoidance? And it talked about 12 ways we practice avoidance. So that's where you could find it. So I won't cover that so much as I will cover just some overall categories that I'm going to get into. Okay. Let me first cover the first kind. I'll get into mental, behavioral, some others. Mental avoidance. Let's talk about that for a moment, because so much avoidance goes on in our mind. In fact, I work with a lot of people in the space of OCD, and there's a form of OCD called pure O. You can look that up, pure O. And it's where the obsession and compulsion and the whole loop is in the head, and you are in your mind and you're doing a bunch of loops. So there's a lot of things that are done in that create avoidance, thought suppression, or thought stopping. Don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. Whatever you do, don't think about it. Thoughts go away, leave me alone, leave me alone. Or we use constant distractions. Now, sometimes it's good to redirect our thoughts and redirect our focus to something else that just stops feeding the thing we're ruminating over, right? But then we can move into where we have to constantly be distracted or constantly even be busy. We create mental rules to undo the unwanted thoughts, or we ruminate. We avoid in rumination by ruminating to try to fix, to try to make the past better in our minds, or we spend a lot of time spinning about something. We don't actually do something. We're just more spinning of the worry of it rather than having the conversation or taking the step. And then we're procrastinating. We're overthinking a lot as well, too. Then there's the behavioral avoidance, which is avoiding places, people, or situations. people can develop all kinds of rituals and routines in an attempt to avoid anything that could make them feel uncomfortable. And they often fear that if they don't, danger is there. Something bad will happen. So we can avoid so many different things. Or we just simply not doing something. We just don't take a step. We procrastinate. And then there's relational avoidance. And this is a big one, especially if you've been significantly hurt in relationships. The past pain gets projected onto our present and our future. So we avoid conversations. We avoid having a tough conversation. We avoid working through conflict. You avoid talking to your spouse. I've been amazed over the decades of how much couples actually don't talk to each other and have deep, meaningful conversations of intimacy with each other. Having a conversation with a leader, or having a conversation with your boss over something that's a concern, or having that awkward discussion. We avoid it. We avoid talking about emotions. We avoid in our homes talking through awkward or touchy subjects. And so I find that relational avoidance causes a lot of added problems, because many problems that we have relationally could be remedied a lot. Maybe not perfectly solved, but they could be helped a lot with just a really good, honest, but loving conversation. I remember my pastoring, for example, that, from time to time people would leave the church. And I was shocked at how often people would just leave and never have a conversation and never just say, hey, I'm going to be moving on. And it was like, we do this a lot. I was like, I just wanted to sit down and just say goodbye and thank you and just wish you well. And but there's so many things wrapped up in our avoidance, right? We're fearful somebody's going to hurt us or yell at us or something's going to happen. But there's a lot of avoidance in this that keeps us from experiencing greater freedom in our mental health. Another one is just activities avoidance. Avoiding an activity that's related to your feared subject or your phobia or your obsession. You may avoid certain activities because of fear of being embarrassed or not doing well or not doing it well. You avoid activities with other people, social events. I personally feel, this is my conviction, I'm very grieved over what happened during the period of time that we call COVID-19, the COVID period of when we all went through that. And because it took a toll on people, especially our children and young people. But it took a toll on people relationally. It took a toll on people's mental health. Social anxiety has increased. Isolation has increased. Fear of getting diseases is increased. People, moving to work at home is also a big factor too now. We have a lot more people working remotely, which is fine. But it also now limits our in-person interaction with people and the practice and the exercise that brings to our emotional muscles, our relational muscles. There's a lot of beauty gained in in-person interactions, but the stats are definitely showing that anxiety's gone up, depression's gone up, addiction patterns has gone up, and isolation has increased. There were some things that happened that didn't just reset afterwards. And people are still carrying many avoidance patterns now with them. And there was many relationships lost. There was a lot of strife going on in our nation, around the world, and divided relationships. And now people are more apprehensive, less prone to opening up because of all the avoidance that builds up because of painful experiences they've gone through. So there's also emotional avoidance. Many of you grew up in homes that lived in emotional avoidance. You just don't really talk about those things. You might be in a marriage where this took place. You might have parents that are like this. In my church experience with people, this is a big one, because there has been historically a lot of avoidance in dealing with emotions, especially the ones we call negative or yucky. So we do a lot of numbing out, checking out. We fall into our addiction patterns, our escapism. Christians are very notorious for their excessive busyness. We get busy with church, and I used to hear people say this all the time. You got to just stay busy, right? Right? It's got to stay busy. That's what you got to do. And it's like, well, not just busy, just for the sake of busyness. Because a lot of times we're avoiding being still because we can't be with ourselves because the fears rise up and the pain rises up. So we often need a constant stimulation of phones, entertainment, a tablet, a computer, something being on, music playing. We have to always have something distracting our minds. Meanwhile, we're avoiding grieving through difficult emotions and processing through anger or depression or loss in our life, or what we would call negative emotion. We don't give room to sit with some uncomfortable feelings or to sit with uncertainty. Or many people have a sign, it's an invisible sign, but it's there. It says, don't go there. You can see when you get to it. They just change the subject or they turn it into a quick positive. Hyperpositivity is a very common avoidance pattern that we slap onto something. When there's a tragic situation or something traumatic or there's a loss, that we quickly want to put some positivity on it and to make ourselves feel better, when there's actually a lot of beauty in working through dark or difficult or challenging emotions. We haven't necessarily had good models on how to do that. So why do we avoid? Why do we do this? Because I want to be able to look at this graciously and compassionately and not beat you up and shame you or judge you, but help you to understand more of the root system. One is there's a disempowered relationship that we have with our thoughts, emotions, and our journey. We don't know how to connect to empowerment, to walk through the things that we fear, to walk through the things that are struggles. So we automatically go into avoidance, often without even really knowing it or realizing it. And so we don't know how to relate to our emotions. We don't know how to relate to pain very well, or even relate to our journey and what we're going through. We get overwhelmed, we tilt, and like in a previous video I talked about, where we either get overwhelmed or then we check out or we do a combination of both. A second thing that's important is our window of tolerance is small, or maybe it's been shrunk, where we go, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. The third one's big in my book, and that is lack of emotional equipping. And this goes back to our upbringing and what we were called to experience and being taught and being shown, where parents are called to love us, protect us, but also give us experiences and train us how to face the storms of life with greater resilience. I know that would have made a massive difference in my life if there was more attention brought to that, of how to lovingly have a greater resolve and how to face things that stretch me. And this avoidance brings us up. We didn't get equipping, so we need to be taught and we need to practice. Of course, trauma is something that will definitely create avoidance patterns. It cause our sense of danger to increase. And again, a lot of us are not equipped on how to work through discomfort, uncomfortable things to find victory on the other side. We fear a loss of control. We have a projected fear that I will not be safe, or just a fear of an uncomfortable feeling, being in a situation or circumstance where I'm just going to be uncomfortable. And so the avoidance patterns occur so that we just don't we don't feel at all. And really what we're dealing with is we're dealing with the fear factor here. We're dealing with how fear has infiltrated our perspectives and our thinking. And so we have to understand that when the compulsive avoidance, when we fall into these patterns, works against our mental health. Now, I got to say this, we all have avoidance patterns. So this is not like just some people. What we want to be aware of is, okay, what are the avoidance patterns that are hindering my ability to grow and flourish? Take a moment right now and pause and ask yourself, where do I avoid in life? And how is it preventing me from taking a step of faith into a new level of strength and resolve? Because many times what we do, let's be honest, we can defend our avoidance patterns. Well, Mark, you can't just be reckless. Well, I gotta make sure that I'm, I got some concern. I want to just make sure I'm doing the right thing. There's a lot of things that we could. Mark, there's danger here. There's a lot of things we can do to defend our avoidance issues. But let me first talk to you about the paradox of avoidance. And I try to keep from using big words. I'm not a big word person. A paradox is it's a seeming contradiction here, but it's not, right? On one hand, we get short-term relief. But in the long term, we're actually creating more bondage. And so I recognize this. I had a massive avoidance problem in an area called relationship OCD. It infiltrated dating life and getting close and moving forward in the relationship. And so I would fall into constant avoidance. As soon as I would start feeling anxious, I would have a conversation or lessen the commitment or say, maybe we just need to be friends, or the Lord's telling me, or break up, or all these things what I would do to try to make myself feel better. And I would temporarily feel better, maybe 24 hours, maybe not even. But then soon I would miss the person. And then, so I over time began to see like this pattern is getting in the way of what I actually want. And so I had to learn, I've got to work and walk through this discomfort versus running away from it, thinking, "Oh, I'm helping myself by avoiding." What we keep avoiding makes the issue grow stronger. You have to understand that. In the long run, it makes the boogeyman, it makes the whatever it is, that subject, just seem more and more threatening. And it teaches our brain that what we're fearing is truly dangerous. I use that air quotes. We become convinced now of this danger. The second thing is our relationship with fear gets disempowered. Fear becomes a bully and it terrorizes us. At first, we feel a sense of safety, but we actually cause the fear interpretation to have greater influence and power in our thinking and actions. I got to the point where I was listening to fear pretty much 24/7 all the time, listening to it and obeying it every time, and often through avoidance patterns. Fear gets more power through avoidance. And we often want the anxiety to leave before we take a step. This is a common problem. We want to feel better, feel good, and then take a step. We don't know how to take steps while fear is present. We have to learn to. Otherwise, we can fall into this common Christian pattern of chasing the peace, I call it. I don't know if I have peace about it. I got to wait till I have peace. And now we chase that thing. It's understandable. God has called us to live in peace, the peace of God, which passes all understanding. But most of our journey, especially if you struggle with trauma or OCD or anxiety, a lot of your journey is going to be seeing the fear and moving towards it and through it, not chasing the peace, because chasing the peace is going to be you chasing that feeling, and it's often filled with avoidance patterns. And we often associate God with something where it feels nice, and we associate not of God if fear is there, or maybe you every time fear talks, you think it's God leading you. There's a lot of confusion in this, as you can see, mainly because fear has become the boss and we become disempowered. Now, our world, what happens, begins to shrink, and what happens is, and let me just go back a second. And go back a second. So I have another thought, because what we fear, it expands over time if we don't walk through it, we don't strengthen ourselves. So then what we'll end up doing is we'll end up spending more time anticipating fearful events than actually just taking steps. How many of us do that? We spend more time mulling versus actually taking a step, and now fear's expanding. Maybe you're fearing snakes, or you're fearing, rejection, or you're fearing this scripture, or you're fearing this, you're fearing public speaking, or whatever it is. We feed avoidance there. Now it's expanding. It's going over here. It's going over here. So that's important. So meanwhile, in that, our world can begin to shrink. Life begins to narrow in because now we're avoiding. So our options feel less and less, right? We get more isolated. We have less relational experiences. Meanwhile, the beauty of mental health is having fruitful relationship experiences. But this avoidance wants to isolate you. And then within that, and I saw this within my own life, is I get stifled in my emotional processing, where I'm not actually working through emotions. I'm not actually working through difficult things because I don't let myself feel them. I don't even go there. And so then I don't know how to soothe myself without resorting to my avoidance patterns. I'll give you a moment to just kind of take that in. Meanwhile, we're losing a sense of resilience. And this is a very important word to me, something I value a lot. And I put the definition of it there, a working definition. It's the capacity to withstand or to recover from difficulties and challenges. It also speaks of toughness. There's an emotional toughness that you develop. And it talks about the ability to emotionally bounce back. What a great word. The ability to recover, the ability to withstand, developing emotional toughness, and also learning how to bounce back. Because in Christ, you were made to overcome. But you need something that you face to overcome. And avoidance keeps you from the victory that's available in walking through your fears. And so with avoidance, we lose emotional resilience. We develop a diminished capacity to bounce back from adversity. And then we lose a sense of confidence and we don't bother. We feel like we can't handle anything. And the more that we do this, the more it just wears us down and wears us down. You have to remember that the goal of working through triggering in the long run is to not let what triggers us dictate us. That's a big key, is that we no longer let what triggers us dictate us. Listen, you may get triggered in something. It doesn't mean it has to dictate you. And developing resilience is changing our response to things that often will trigger us. There's often a hindered learning and adaptation that takes place because we learn through experience, folks. We learn through the trials, the tribulations, the difficulties, the things that are really challenging. And those of you that have OCD issues and trauma issues, and you work through that and work through it, it stretches you, doesn't it? And you learn in it. It's like if you have a obsessive compulsiveness and you see someone else who struggles with it, you know how to level with them right away, explain and connect to them, and you can maybe even help them with what you've learned. Why? Because you've gone through it. But if there's avoidance always there, then what do I have to offer people? If you've been blessed by anything I've ever taught, said, you can thank the battles in my life. You can thank the times where I felt like I didn't think I was ever going to make it. But I just kept stepping forward, kept learning, kept relearning, try again, learning new ways to approach things, learning how to relate to my thoughts. And I learned in the battle. And many of us in the battle, we develop goofy theology. We want God to rescue us. We want God to come in and just take this away. We want him to do all these things for us, but we don't realize we actually need the battle to bring out the beautiful glory that's in us. We need the resistance because there we find great strength that you couldn't find without the battle. There's things you learn in the valley you cannot learn at the mountaintop. There's things you learn going uphill that you can't learn just walking on a plateau. There's things in life, and I want you to change your perspective. There are things in life that create a lot of challenges, and these are areas that are going to be actually great areas of strength. Providing we go, all right, I'm walking through this. I got to take a journey. Otherwise, the avoidance patterns is going to shut down new experiences that could strengthen me. And then I have limited coping skills where I have an over-reliance on avoidance instead of developing healthier coping mechanism. And most of all, my life is going to experience impaired relationships and quality of life. I'm going to isolate more. I'm going to withdraw more. The potential will not be experienced. All of us have a potential in Christ of what can take place if we just take a step and walk through our fears. Because I've been telling people this for 20 years. Your greatest victories are in the valley and in the journey of walking through your fears. That's really what is beautiful about this. However, you need to realize too that your avoidance patterns, it's going to take a toll on your relationship capacity. Like the people around you, they're going to get frustrated. And even people relating to you, if you're a big avoider, then you don't answer calls, or you don't answer texts, or you don't deal with conflicts, or you don't deal with stuff, or you have this social thing, or this thing you don't do, or that thing, avoidance. It's going to take a toll on your ability to have relationships, and the people who love you are going to get frustrated because you can only go so far with them, because when fear knocks, you listen and you go with it in avoidance. I say that because I lived in it, and I can say it honestly. it'll take a toll. And I had to recognize if I'm going to see greater fruit in my life, I have to be willing to face my fears with a new resolve. Now, I want to talk about God's perspective in this because I believe these 3 verses are theologically grounded areas of God's relationship to us and our fears, to the journey, to the battle. The first one's Joshua 1:9, a great statement here, where he says, be strong and courageous. So he's feeding him with words of a picture of who he is and who they are, and God at work. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So this creates a theological framework of don't be afraid, don't be discouraged. Why? Because those are the 2 things that are hitting us constantly. Fear and discouragement, fear and discouragement, fear and discouragement all along the journey, right? Now, what God is saying here is not, oh, you need to be just void of ever feeling anxious or worried. No, what he's saying here is when he says don't be afraid, don't feed your fears. That's what he's saying. He's saying don't feed your fears. Don't let them dictate you. Feed strength, feed courage. Courage is taking the step even though you're afraid. Strength is recognizing that going into the gym of resistance is where you get the strength. I need resistance in order to build my muscles. So in this picture, why does God say, you don't have to feed your fears. You don't have to feed discouragement. Feed strength, feed courage. Why? Because I'm with you. And this is God's heart in everything is I am here. It's proximity. It's connection. I'm walking with you through this. You are not alone. You are not doing this on your own. I'm walking with you. As you take a step of faith, I'm filling you with more to take the next step. Grace is there. Faith is being practiced. And David brought this out really well. It's one of the greatest passages of Scripture, in my opinion, in the Bible, because of so many pictures of what God speaks here. In Psalm 23 and verse 4, David says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, what a picture he creates here. The imagery of darkness, of dread, of fear, of the worst case scenarios, or whatever kind of things float around in our minds. David says, I will fear no evil. Specifically, he's saying, I'll fear no evil. Why? Because you're with me. Again, proximity, connection. And notice most of your spiritual battles surround you feeling disconnected from God, from yourself, from other people. That's where mental health erodes, is in that sense of disconnection. The cross of Christ brings reconnection, right? But there's a war and a battle over that, over us experiencing it. So the picture is not God just taking away all your problems. The picture is not God tormenting you. The picture is not God just trying to make your life difficult. The picture is God being with us, that in the journey we experience some of the greatest victories and the greatest fruit by facing, overcoming that which we're afraid of, and building and overcoming a resilient heart. Everything in my life where there has been great fruit has often come out of me stepping into something I was afraid of. Everything I'm doing today with my YouTube channel, with my podcast, with this ministry that I started 20 years ago and went down this path of healing hearts and helping people, but went through a lot of fearful times and dark seasons, and many challenging battles in my thinking and is this going to work out? And what's going to happen with this? And I'm still on my journey of it. And layer by layer, just continuing to learn to overcome. This passage of Scripture has helped me tremendously to be reminded. Take the step, walk through it. I'll be with you in it. And great victory is going to come out of it. A reminder in 2 Timothy where Paul said it to him and said, listen, God's not giving this to you. A spirit of fear. And what's that spirit of fear going to want to do? One of the things it's going to want to do is put you into avoidance, to put you into flight mode. We know about fight or flight, right? Avoidance really kicks up that flight pattern. Get me out of here. And Paul reminded Timothy, when you feel that stuff, it's not God. It's not him. He's not giving it to you. But go back to Psalm 23. He He's going to help you walk through it. What he has given you is power, love, and a sound mind, which fear seeks to combat those three areas. And when you're stuck in fear, you feel disconnected from power, you feel disconnected from love, and you feel disconnected from soundness in your mind, for sure, right? So take in God's heart is, for so many of you, the training ground of fear, the training ground of discomfort is where some of your greatest sharpening is going to come about. That what your battlegrounds have brought about to bring an erosion to your life, to bring destruction, is actually going to be places where some of the greatest glory, some of the greatest victories will shine through, and you will have precious jewels to offer other people. It won't be a theory, because it's stuff that you've actually gone through. It's stuff you've actually experienced. So with that in mind, what I want to do is give you some, what I consider to be some very practical steps to avoiding your, to overcoming your avoidance patterns. And the first one is something I recommend in a lot of my coaching work. Recognize the cost of staying in avoidance patterns. Before we even talk about what to do, you need to get sober. What will your life look like if you do nothing about this and you stay in these avoidance patterns? The reason I bring this up and bring the cost is we need to get sober because we don't address avoidance usually until it gets really bad. Where we see it, it's controlling us, it's interfering with our lives, it's limiting our capacity. We usually don't face this. And my experience has shown this to be true with people. We usually don't face it until it gets really, really bad. I would love to say we change when there's a beautiful picture opened up to us and we just gain a sense of just loving embrace. It's great. But we don't make adjustments until we go, oh, this is really messing with my life. I remember years ago, I used to do a lot of leadership training and reading books and stuff like that. Of course, the famous one was John Maxwell. And he would say this statement. He'd say, people change when they hurt enough that they have to. And I would say at all the major places of my life where I was in avoidance, it was true. There's usually, it's just, we get to a place where life is really, really getting overwhelming and difficult. We have to make a change. Avoidance puts us into a cushioned life where we just want to be comfortable, but we actually need resistance to develop spiritual muscles. For many, you need to simply step into the battle of facing your fears. That's it. What are you afraid of? Okay, time to take a step and show that fear is just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. It's not so much that the fear can harm you. It's more you following it, listening to it, obeying it that brings harm to your journey. And so it's going to need a sober step. The second thing is lovingly, and of course we want to do this with grace and compassion, but soberly recognize where avoidance is driving you. Document it, journal it, share it with someone who you trust. See your patterns and be honest about them. Identify those patterns so that you get real with them. Acknowledge the cost of avoidance without shame and self-condemnation. And here's a tip. If a loved one tells you, I think you're avoiding something here. Take that into consideration. May help you to get some clarity on something you may be ignorant of. Number 3 is challenge avoidant-based perspectives. What do I mean by this? Why do you avoid? Tell me why. Just tell me why you avoid. The answer you give me is going to have fear infused in it. And you're going to see the beliefs that keep that avoidance pattern in place. And you're going to have to push back on this and go, okay, I can't serve that belief anymore. The heart of working through avoidance, I have to change my relationship with fear. We avoid in response to fear. That's our flight system kicking in. But when avoidance patterns come in, our system's getting hijacked. You gain strength by working through that which you fear. I remember there was a point in time early on, I would say about 2005-06, where I got fed up with how much fear was ruling my life. And I made this black and white decision. This is where I used my black and white thinking to my advantage. And I said, if anything makes me anxious, I'm just going to move towards it. I know people could maybe take that to unhealthy extremes. But I was like, I'm just tired of it. So if I feel like, I feel like I'm too insecure to talk to that person, I'm going to go talk to that person. I would just start moving towards things more and just facing it. And I felt this strength and this confidence come about through the practice. And so in that, number 5 is to make room for gradual exposure. This isn't like, taking a jump off of a cliff and skydiving kind of thing. It's taking incremental steps. And this is important. I'll get to that, why gradual is important in just a second. But you may need therapeutic help. You may need some professional help to help you walk through this. But so much of it comes up to you in real life. And so what we're doing here is breaking through our procrastination, because procrastination has a lot of avoidance, and we're taking steps. Now, the gradual is important because if you go too much and you tilt your system, then you can get overwhelmed and you can shut down. And then now it's not doing what it needs to do. You start small, you build the tolerance gradually, but you allow yourself to experience that stimulus where it's not winning the way that it used to. And over time, you learn how to manage, you learn how to cope, you learn how to have experience with these emotions where they no longer boss you around and hold you down the way that they normally do. And so in this, we're welcoming increased levels of stress tolerance. We're welcoming this. Hey, I'm going to welcome the battle instead of running from it. So in my public speaking things, I get asked to speak somewhere. I'm like, I wish they would ask somebody else to do it. I'm so anxious. You know what? I'm moving towards it. This is good for me because I develop a confidence and develop a resilience. This is where we expand our window of tolerance, right? Where the bottom end and the top end is not just owning us now. We learn to sit with uncomfortable feelings without immediately escaping. We recognize that anxiety is temporary. It's going to decrease. This isn't going to stay around forever, even though sometimes we think it will. In the midst of this, I always want to encourage my brothers and sisters to nurture your connection to God's loving care. Nurture it. You're receiving nurture, but find ways where you have your home base to connect. Develop routines where you recalibrate your stress response. Times of stillness, quiet, slow, meditation, soaking in God's love and nurture. This is important. This is your routine home base. However, I want to say this is very important. Beware of using this that's actually keeping you from activation. Because some of you say, I've got anxiety. I need to go get in God's love right now. Maybe, but maybe you need to step through this and face it. This is not meant necessarily a go and try to sit and pray, God, I need your love right now. It may be more of a take action, because avoidance can fall into this where it's taking us away from activation. Many OCDers can use relaxation techniques as a form of avoidance. Nothing wrong with having relaxation on a daily basis as your routine. You end the day, you start the day, maybe in the middle of the day, you have a break, those kind of things to recalibrate. But this is the key. Relaxation, stillness, and meditation are for recalibrating you so that you get back out there again. I'm going to say this again. Relaxation, stillness, and meditation, those kind of things, are for recalibrating your system so that you get back out there. But it's not necessarily going to be like, I feel 100% better and ready. It's just more like a recalibrating that you get to just strengthen yourself, to get back in there. All right. Number 8, I want to encourage you to find a support system. Find it. Now, some people have to start online because that's the only place that they can seem to find it. The people that get it are walking through it themselves. Professional help is great. Pastoral support, friends or family members if they're helpful. But people that know of your battle will encourage you to take those steps and won't play around with your avoidance issues. You need people in your life that are not going to put up with your avoidance kind of BS. We're like, hey, just face it. Just face it. You're putting it off. Come on, do it. You need that in your life. We need that encouragement and celebrating those steps. Hey, great step. And last, and I'm going to take a moment to pray for you, is we have to learn to become our biggest encouragers. I've had to learn this. practicing self-compassion when you get overwhelmed, celebrating small victories, having a conversation with yourself. So like, I can do this. I can take this step and take that step and celebrate that you took it, because you need to see those facing of your fears as an act of faith. And you're also building your spiritual and emotional muscles. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking a step while shaking, taking a step while anxious, taking a step while afraid. So understand that triggers are normal, but they'll want to create avoidance patterns. And you'll need to keep a journey mindset of, I got to practice, I got to practice, I got to practice. And recognize growth comes about through facing discomfort. And so I want to take a moment and just pray over your heart about this. God, would you help us? Because your grace is here to build our faith. And I ask for everyone listening and watching that you would build a greater sense of faith, hope, and love in their lives by taking a step. That which we have feared and avoided, we're now going to face step by step. And I know that you're going to meet us in this. You're going to meet us in each step of the way. And I'm so grateful for it, because great things have come about in my life as a result. And I know you're going to do great things in those who are taking this in and putting it into action and are going to be doers of the word in this. I thank you for it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Was this a blessing to your life and to your journey? If it was, do me a favor, click that like button, click subscribe. It would mean a whole lot. Share it with a friend, share it on social media, and write why it helped you. You can even comment on this video feed. If you share it with others, let them know which part helped you, which part was meaningful to you in your journey. You can also go over to markdejesus.com, where I have many resources and materials you can take advantage of. There's also a donate button there if you want to support these videos. I have a topics library you can take advantage of to search issues and subjects that I teach on a regular basis. I also have great materials for OCD, the OCD healing journey. Those of you that have relationship OCD, the myth of the perfect one. If you want to recalibrate your relationship with fear, I recommend I Will Not Fear. This has been a foundational teaching for my life, for my journey, that I want to share with you. Well, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, this is your brother from another mother saying I'll be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime, I'm out.